Hello everyone, and welcome to the first patch discussion for the 3.2 mock for PhD. This is the casters patch. Here are the costs. I'll put these on the screen really quickly. You can pause the video at any point to take a closer look. And let's get into it. There's a lot of stuff to cover. First off, let's discuss the mock lineup. The blessing this time around does pretty negligible damage, and it occurs at the start of each wave. Similar to previous blessings, which didn't add that much to your overall damage, this puts a larger emphasis on the personal damage of your DPS. Not only that, the healing portion of the blessing, although it makes sustain a little bit easier, it makes sustainless a little bit more viable, it generally is not enough to replace a sustain for the vast majority of PvP comps. Now, on side 1, we're going to be dealing with Reaver. Reaver has mechanics that give him damage reduction as well as summoning shades every single one of his turns. Importantly, you do have to kill the shades the turn they are summoned before the Reaver moves again. Otherwise, he'll get healed and his damage reduction will not get reduced. This can be potentially run ending because it can easily add a couple cycles to your clear. Now, very clearly, the mechanics favor a bunch of AoE, and his damage reduction also favors true damage because true damage goes straight through his damage reduction. The key to dealing with Reaver is moving at about 160 speed or having action advance to get there, which allows DPS to move in between Reaver to kill the shades in time. Now on side 2, we're dealing with a very familiar Kafka as well as the new horses. Kafka herself is a relatively simple one-phase boss. The only thing you have to worry about is her turn 1 dominate. Outside of that, she's relatively simple. Now, the horses have a lot of CC, they entangle your units, and they also have energy drain, and more disgustingly, they have similar HP pools to Kafka herself, and so side 2 is very deceptively tanky. You have 3 targets. It's like dealing with 3 Kafkas, which limits the effectiveness of single target DPS. So underestimate side 2 at your own peril. Now, as I just said, Reaver's damage reduction incentivizes true damage supports, and what better true damage support than the poster child for true damage, RMC. RMC, this mock, has a lot of good things going for her. Reaver hits are very consistent, which generates controllable charge for RMC, making it a lot easier to control Mem this mock. Her true damage also applies to the AoE damage of your units, which makes it great for clearing shades. She also got a lot more flexibility by being able to run with these new DPS that are coming out that are HP scaling, such as Castrus and Maide. For this reason, RMC will be getting nerfed. Next up, Tribi proves to be one of the strongest supports in the meta still, especially at E0. With her signature, she's able to contribute a lot of personal AoE damage to help kill shades. This can help supplement DPS for lower damage DPS. For DPS that do enough damage by themselves, she can still hold DDD and still perform just the same as she's always had by advancing them a lot because of how fast she gets her ultimate. She also has the strongest raw buffs in the face of damage reduction and works with the new HP scaling characters similar to RMC. She is looking to be a staple in pretty much every team, and she is guaranteed going to save cycles on pretty much most teams. For that reason, Tribi E0 will get nerfed. That being said, though, as you can see, Tribi E1 will get buffed. Why? It's because Tribi E1 doesn't actually work that well into Reaver's mechanics. Tribi E1's true damage typically is only on the main target, which doesn't actually matter as much when you're trying to kill shades. Not only that, killing 2 waves of shades will typically do enough damage to phase Reaver to begin with, and so the extra E1 true damage doesn't actually save you a full shade phase, and so it's typically wasted because you did a little bit of extra damage only for Reaver to phase anyways. And for that reason, Tribi E1 will be getting buffed. Now, as I said before, Tribi's signature has proven to be has proven to make a difference where she herself is contributing more damage. And for that reason, Tribi's signature will be getting nerfed just for that role specifically. Now, as for AoE units and how they've changed compared to the previous mock, unlike Nikador, Reaver cares a lot more about personal damage after you clear his shades, and unlike Nikador, where you clear his spears and you break his armor, and that's typically his full HP bar, you still have to deal with Reaver after the damage reduction gets removed. And for that reason, there's going to be a couple adjustments to these erudition characters. First off, Serval Moc is simply performing worse, both as a battery and a DPS. She can't really keep up with the amount of shades that are being summoned. For that reason, she will be getting buffed. Small Herda, on the flip side, performs amazing into the constantly summoned shades because she gets a lot of follow-ups all the time, which actually makes her being built as a DPS actually do pretty respectable damage. She can still be played as a support, and for that reason, Small Herda will be getting nerfed. Now, as for the 5-star erudition characters, Jade is performing a lot worse as a DPS because now it relies a lot more on her personal damage, and so her cost is reverted to reflect her new role as an AoE support. So she'll be getting changed a little bit. Jimmy, this Moc, is performing a lot worse. Not only does he not have the energy, he also cannot clear shades fast enough because Lightning Lord is a bounce, and bounces don't really do well into the shades. Not only that, his Lightning Lord is too slow at a baseline, he is very reliant on Sunday, and his lack of flexibility makes him very weak. For that reason, Jingrin will be getting massively buffed. Now, the herd of this Moc is also performing quite a bit worse. She lost out on the energy, she lost out on Nikador's armor energy, and so her damage uptime on her enhanced skills is a lot lower. She also requires using her enhanced skills to clear shades. So that means that the vast majority of the Herda's damage actually hits the damage reduction of the Reaver, leaving her with a lot less damage after the damage reduction is removed. For that reason, base Herda is performing worse. Now, that being said, E1 Herda is performing quite a bit better because now personal damage matters a lot more again this Moc, and it typically makes a cycle difference. So therefore, E0 Herda will get buffed, while E1 Herda will get nerfed to compensate. Now, Acheron at a baseline is not performing very well, only working well at E2 or if you have a lot of wind supports. The reason for this is because baseline generates too little stacks to get enough ultimates to clear shades in time. You need to get ultimate for every Reaver turn, which is really difficult. At E2, she can also run action advance supports, which can help shore up her weakness and get her to 160 speed to keep up with Reaver. And for that reason, her baseline will be getting buffed, while her E2 will be getting nerfed. Now, as for more AoE units, Aglaia right now is suffering quite a bit at a baseline. Again, there's no energy Moc or armor energy from Nikador, which makes her a lot more limited in draft. She will rely a lot more on these energy supports, which makes her a little bit weaker. Not only that, because she doesn't have this energy, her ultimate uptime suffers quite a bit, which limits her capability to actually clear shades. Her nature as a blast DPS also makes clearing the AoE shades a lot slower because you have to waste maybe 2, maybe 3 enhanced auto attacks to clear all the shades. She also cannot be run into side 2 because Kafka has lightning resistance, which is a big no-no. And for that reason, Aglaia base will be getting massively buffed, while her higher Eidolons will get nerfed to compensate. Maide, to nobody's surprise, is thriving very well in the HP Blessing Moc. He has built-in CC immunity and taunt, which avoids a lot of the danger that comes from side 2. Side 2 is also completely imaginary weak, which is perfect for him. And on top of that, because of his safety, self-healing, and CC immunity, he can very, very easily run sustainless, which only makes his clears even more flexible and even faster. For that reason, Maide will be getting massively nerfed. Now, let's talk about the couple single target units that are being run this Moc, which are not very many. First off, single target units are typically run into side 2 because they cannot deal with Reaver's AoE mechanics. Now, Butil is very much struggling on side 2. Although he is one of the better DPS to run sustainless with, it is still very risky to run him because you have to break 3 targets. He also relies very heavily on Fugue to actually get stacks to start ramping him up at the start. And he also relies on potentially higher-ided Fugues to get enough weakness break efficiency to break the toughness bars on side 2 in time. For that reason, Boothill will be getting buffed. Fei Xiao is also struggling in a similar manner to Boothill, especially at E0. She's very reliant on Robin. Although Kafka is wind weak, and Fei Xiao is good into Kafka, horses being non-wind weak makes it so that she requires more ultimates to kill the horses than Kafka herself. And for that reason, E2 helps immensely in generating enough ultimates to kill the horses within the cycle. So for that reason, her base will be getting buffed to the system minimum of 0.5, whereas higher Eidolons will be getting nerfed to compensate. Now, Yunli and Clara are, although Kafka is historically been a good boss for Yunli and Clara because she attacks a lot and they're very tanky, dealing with the new units of the line and the horse does require really big supports, such as Tribby, to help clear the non-physical weak enemies. The lion and the horse also drain energy, which makes it a lot harder to clear. Also, for Yun Li, her bounces are typically wasted into the horses rather than Kafka herself. And obviously, it is very unplayable into Reaver because he constantly summons shades, and their nature as a counter-based DPS makes it so that they can't clear the shades before Reaver moves again, which is not what we want. And for that reason, they will not be getting changed. They will remain at the system minimum of 0.5. Now, as for Super Break, Super Break is typically played into side 2 because Kafka's one phase nature benefits Break a lot more. They don't need to break a second phase to do damage again. And because side 2 is imaginary weak, very aptly, Rappa is very good there. She's very safe into Kafka. Her imaginary break keeps her safe from all the CC, all the damage, and she typically kills the horses alongside Kafka because of her AoE nature. However, she does rely very heavily on Fugue to get enough energy for her ultimate at E0, which makes her very easy to target in draft. Despite this and her polarizing performance, she will be getting nerfed. Now, in comparison to Rappa, Firefly is doing a lot worse. Her blast just isn't enough to deal with the HP creep that the horses have, and for that reason, she's just struggling at E0, so she will be getting buffed. Across the different Super Break teams, it is very clear that Fugue has proven to be integral for all variants of Super Break, as well as Boothill, and the reliance on Fugue has only gone up, and for that reason, Fugue will be getting nerfed. Now, Pella is very strong yet again. She maintains her strength from last mock coming into this mock. Reaver Shade Kill Energy gives her 20 energy. 4 Shades is 20 energy with her E1, which ensures perfect ultimate uptime. Her AoE Death Shred is also really, really good at helping DPS kill in killing the Shades. And she also works as a driver for multiple different comps because of her frequent ultimates and AoE nature, such as for Tribby and Herda. She is also flexible because she's one of the few supports that can work with HP scalers, such as Casters and Mide, so she is very, very contested there. And she continues to be flexible into side 2 because she works well with Super Break characters. For all these reasons, Pella will be remaining at the same strength as she was last mock. We will be keeping an eye on this in the future. Now, Bronya E2 this mock is performing quite a bit better because she enables 160 speed teams. She allows Speed Boots DPS to get to 161 to keep up with Reaver. The same concept applies with Fei Xiao to keep up with Kafka on side 2. In general, speed value this mock has gone up because of this reliance on moving with the Reaver, and previously, prior to this mock, Bronya E2 was typically used to run an attack boost on your DPS, so it was converted into extra damage. But this mock, the extra damage matters a little bit less because you just have to kill Shades. And because of the speed reliance, she will be getting nerfed. We're actually getting the full value out of the 30 speed. So her E2 will be getting nerfed. Now, in comparison to Bronya, Sunday is just performing a little bit worse because he cannot replicate what Bronya E2 does to get to 160 speed. At best, he is being run as a wheelchair action advancer or -1. So it makes it a lot more difficult for Sunday to do the 160 speed things that Bronya E2 does. Additionally, his typical pairings, energy pairings of Yinli, Aglaé, and Jimmy are all performing a lot worse. His damage percent is also less useful against the damage reduction on Reaver in comparison to RMC's true damage. Although he has a decent pairing with Casterus, his overall lowered flexibility and his worse performance and his more difficult ability to be run in different teams does require him to get buffed. Robin runs into the same problem as Sunday. Damage percent is less needed. She is also way too slow because her action advance comes at unnecessary times with Reaver, and the majority of her value comes from running with Feixiao teams. Because of her lowered flexibility, because of her worse ability at dealing with the mechanics, she will be getting buffed. Now, as for sustains, we're looking at sustains that'll help with both sides. Aventurine's CC Res offers a bit more safety on side 2, and for that reason, being a bit more contested, he will be getting nerfed. Gallagher is also performing as a top tier sustain for a variety of teams. The blessing itself does shore up one of his weaknesses, which is his lower heal up time, because he relies on his ultimate to heal. It shores up that weakness of having a lowered reactionary healing. And for that reason, he has become very, very safe, and it makes him one of the best plug-and-play healers in the game. He fulfills his typical roles of having a QBQ battery, AoE ultimate, having some of the best AoE healing in the game, and amazing SP generation. It simply makes him very, very contested for all teams. Additionally, his super high base effect res, which makes it really easy to build 100% effect res on him, and his on-demand cleanse for side 2 helps deal with Kafka's dominate. For all these reasons, Gallagher will be getting nerfed. Ho-Ho in comparison is falling behind. Although her cleanse is good into dominate, she is just a little bit weaker because she cannot generate as much SP as Gallagher, being SP neutral at a baseline. Not only that, the Entangle CC on side 2, although it can be cleansed, you cannot prevent the delay, whereas Gallagher does provide 50 effect res to the heal targets, which makes it a little bit safer. For that reason, Ho-Ho will be getting buffed. Welt, this Moc, has found a niche with Super Break because he can interrupt Kafka's dominate very easily. Not only that, side 2 is all imaginary weak, and he helps with breaking. The one-phase Kafka also makes his sustain a little bit easier because he doesn't have to ult again because there is no second phase. In general, the blessing also helps keep his teammates topped up, and it gives him a little bit more leeway. And for that reason, Welt will be getting nerfed. Now let's talk about Casterus' global passive, which is very controversial. The way we're going to deal with it is we kind of recognize that Casterus' passive is generally unavoidable, and so we will not take measures to ignore it. For example, a couple suggestions that were thrown around were that the revived character can only basic attack, or we try to avoid healing or shielding the character so they die again. But that is very difficult to control in general from game to game, and it depends on case to case, and rather we would simply we would prefer to just add a cost, and the cost is the addition of 6 points per revive. Casterus' global passive is an AoE of 2 characters that at the same time these 2 characters will get revived. So just for example, 2 characters would be 12 points, 3 characters 18, and so on. And the way the 6 points is broken down is there's 1 point for your normal death cost, 1 point for using the Casterus global passive, and 4 points for the average of 1 cycle loss that you would have gotten for losing the character in general. So for close games, this 6 point addition will typically still result in a loss, just as if that character died, even if the player doesn't wipe, because the points would make a difference. Not only that, for games that, for runs that would have cleared regardless, it allows these runs to have a low penalty leeway to actually clear and be fine. So it helps work through these case-by-case basis. And when Casterus is on the team, obviously these revives will not be costed. This is only for the off-team revive because this is part of her base kit. And when these revives do happen, be sure to place the cost under the modifier box on the website for now until we get a more streamlined method to add this global passive cost. Now, how is she as a unit? Pretty obviously, she is the shield unit this mock, with Reaver being the enemy that was built for her. The blessing also enables very fast dragon generation by giving your team more HP and also healing. Obviously performs very well into Reaver because 165 speed on the dragon fits perfectly in between shades, to nobody's surprise. The cone is also very strong and it typically saves a cycle. However, she is very vulnerable in draft because she's an HP scaler that doesn't work with a lot of supports. So she's really reliant on having RMC, Pella, Tribi, Sunday as her main supports. She is also very limited by her sustains because she's reliant on Locha and Gallagher as main sustains, because these are the only two healers that heal enough for her to actually have good dragon uptime. Without these healers, the dragon is going to be summoned a lot slower, which is not what we want. Despite that, she is very strong, and her performance is pretty good in comparison to the rest of the cast. For that reason, these are her costs for herself and her cone, respectively. Now, as for the future, we'll be continuing to keep an eye on Caster's performance to make sure that she is performing at her cost level. Not only that, we'll be keeping more of an eye on Facial, Akron, Tribi, and Jade to make sure that they are performing at their respective costs. Pella, as I said before, is someone that seems to be very flexible and run everywhere. We'll be keeping a close watch on her to see if she deserves any nerfs in the future. And finally, we'll be continuing to keep an eye on Super Break with the addition of these HP scalers and the addition of more contested supports such as RMC, such as Gallagher. Super Break typically slips through draft and goes under the radar. And so we'll be monitoring the impact of that and how well it plays into the ability to draft them. Now, as for the upcoming events, on the 12th and 13th, we have the autoplay tourney. Just like the name suggests, the autoplay tourney is you draft a team, turn on autoplay, and watch AI ruin your team. And it's going to be a lot of fun. There are 4 time slots, and I encourage all of you to watch the matches on Discord. The time slots are on the 12th and 13th. By the time this video comes out, it will have been the 13th already, so there's only 2 slots to watch, which is at 11:30 a.m. PST and at 6 p.m. PST. After that, we have our second patch discussion thread. We'll be opening up the thread for more discussion on the 20th and the 21st. And then on the 23rd and the 24th, the second patch will be implemented, and hopefully the next video will be completed and released by then. So I will see you in the next video, and enjoy Casterus. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!